All right, as soon as we get this going right here we go. All right, I'm gonna start you out with this right here. It's gonna be a little short video. We're kind of gonna pause as far as we go. Today we're gonna start talking about the idea of Islam. And one of the big things about Islam, right after 9/11 happened, this was a humongous thing as far as a teacher wise, especially in Texas. We had a group of lessons that were called like C-scope lessons, and parents had like straight up revolts against anybody that was teaching the idea of Islam. In no way was anybody promoting it or saying this or saying that, but they had a really, really big issue with the idea of Islam being taught to the students because of what had happened with 9/11. Okay. And then kind of the big deal that there was two differences. Number one, of Islamic extremists and the idea of the religion of Islam. Okay. So I'm going to show you why. Number one, it's really, really, really important that you understand, kind of what the foundations of Islam is about for a couple specific reasons that will 100% affect you during your lifetime. And if I can get this to go back to the beginning right here, there we go. I'm going to pause this in between a little bit. All right, and what I want you to see off of this video is anything in red is going to be Hindu. Anything in blue is going to be Judaism. Anything in yellow is going to be Buddhism. Anything in purple is going to be Christianity. And anything in Islam is going to be green. All right, so this starts at the beginning, and it kind of shows you how the idea of religion was spread throughout the world and the globe right here. All right, so here we go. So there's Hindu in red, begins to shift, spread, and grow. Get a little bit of blue that's growing with the idea of Judaism, right there on the Arabian Peninsula. Buddhism begins to spread, taking over some of Hindu. There's Judaism again. As Jesus is crucified, the idea of Christianity, the idea of the Roman Empire, Christianity begins to slowly spread. You'll see when the Roman Empire accepts it, and it really, really spreads. And then there's Muhammad and Islam. The Roman Empire accepts Christianity. You see how much purple has grown in there. Islam continues to grow, overtaking some purple, driving some Christianity out and up. And then we reach out to North America, and Christianity begins to explode. Colonization of South Africa, Christianity overtakes. All right, so some big things off of this right here. Okay, number one, this area right here that I'm circling with the mouse, that's the Arabian Peninsula. Okay, so Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, Iran, Iraq, Syria, all of those are located in this area. What's interesting is this is actually part of Asia. Okay, most of us refer to it as the Middle East. all right, because it is the Eastern Hemisphere, yet it's in the middle of the Eastern Hemisphere. That's where you get the idea of it being the Middle East. All right. It is very, very similar culturally, geographically, all of the above to Africa more than it is to Asia, but it's located in the continent of Asia. But you see this trade route that can be established here. That's the reason why Islam is spread all throughout the northern part of Africa, throughout the Middle East, throughout the coastal areas, and to the east. All right. What could be a problem based upon this chart, this graph, this map that you may think has happened or possibly could happen again? Okay, there is a lot of change, right? Over time. Yeah. So they buffer right up against each other, right? So like in these areas right here, where there's purple and green that mix, there's probably a lot of people of the same religion here and the same religion here, and there is a conflict that could arise. Right? To be honest with you, if there's going to be a World War III, it's probably going to be based upon a nuclear idea, or it's going to be based upon a religious idea. Is going to be the big problem that kind of goes on. Okay, so you have this idea that, again, the Crusades. We'll talk about those later on. You have the idea of some of the same problems that we have today with the idea of Christianity generally promoting the idea of democracy versus the idea of religion. All right, so that's a big struggle that kind of goes on. Another main reason of why you kind of need to know about this is because, again, how it's going to affect you in your lifetime. All right, so this right here, the fastest growing group of religion in the world, and the projection of 2015 to 2060 is going to be Muslim. So the people of Islamic religion are vastly outnumbering the people in other religions, Christians, Hindus, Jews, and others. There's going to be a large overpopulation of it. Now, it's not necessarily because everyone is converting. It's because of this right here. All right. In this essence right here, Christians in 2010 to 2015, they had 33% children, but yet 37% of them were dying. So therefore, you're at a negative 4%. That means your religion is going backwards. All right. Islam, on the other hand, had a 31% birth, had a 21% death. So therefore, you're plus 10. If that same pattern happens over and over and over and over and over, well, negative 4 and plus 10, eventually that plus 10 catches the negative 4. Okay. And therefore, you have a new number one in religion in the world within your lifetime later on. All right, this is the projection that is supposed to happen. There is 116 million ideas of births to deaths that the Christian religion will gain. There's 152 million that Muslims would gain. So therefore, there is about a 40 million increase in people of Islamic religion that would be in the world. Again, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with conversion. It has to do with the sheer amount of people that are walking on the face of the earth. All right. So how does that impact you? What would that have to do with you? Because remember, Christianity encompasses Roman Catholicism, Baptist, Methodist, Church of Christ, so forth, all the different denominations that go with it. Islam is generally the Sunnis and the Shiites. Okay, those are your two main kind of branches of Islamic religion that's there. All right. So how would that affect you? Why would that be important to you? Why does anything you're about to learn today matter to you? Why was it important to teach it in 2011? Yes. Okay. Give you a perspective of how you look at it as you grow older, as you have children, and as you know the numbers are going to increase, what's going to happen eventually? Raise your hand if you know someone of Islamic religion today. Okay. Based upon the numbers that are there, what's the chances of you knowing someone of Islamic religion whenever you're 40? Pretty good, right? because they're going to go up. The numbers are going to go up. So therefore, as you venture out into the world, away from the bubble of Stephenville, you're probably going to venture into somebody that has or is of the Islamic religion. That way you at least have an understanding. Yes, sir. You have something to say? Okay. So, if you think about it, one of the largest population of Islamic religions is in a place you wouldn't think of. It's in Detroit, Michigan. So that's where you're going to have one of the largest mosques that's there. There was a huge deal after 9/11 that the 9/11 memorial was built, and then there was a proposal to have a mosque that was right beside it, which that was, at the time, pretty hot, hostile topic that was there. And anyway, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. All right. But today we're going to go over some of these main deals that are here, and these key words that are here. And at the tail end of it, you're going to use your discussion board and you're going to go back and kind of define what these are. All right. So why learn it? We just kind of went over that. All right. Because it is a ever growing religion. It's a population that is growing. All right. So we need to kind of understand the differences between those. All right. It doesn't mean that you have to do anything with that knowledge other than being possessed with the knowledge to be able to understand the difference of people. Okay. Understand, kind of where it comes from, and have a good understanding of the idea of the world. All right. So if we go to this, and I'm going to check off this first one right here. All right. Muslim and Islam. They're two different words. All right. Islam is the religion. All right, make sure you kind of understand that. So that's the religion itself. The same way that Christianity is the religion. However, if you're a person that follows Christianity, you're a Christian. If you're a person that follows Islam, you are a Muslim. Do you have to be of a certain descent to be a Muslim? No, the exact same way you don't have to be of a certain descent to be a Christian. All right. Different shapes, sizes, everything else, different skin color, different places of the world where you begin, all of those same thing. It's a term that is used for people that follow that religion. All right. And that's kind of a big thing to be able to kind of understand the difference between Islam and the difference between a Muslim that is there. All right, I'm going to just freeze this screen on the page there. All right. So if we look through this, all right, it says the harsh environment of the Arabian Peninsula. We just showed where the Arabian Peninsula is. All right, it's in the Middle East, or outside Africa, or outside Asia. All right, it says the land is almost completely covered by desert. The desert people were nomads. They herded animals, leading them from one fertile spot or oasis to another. And over time, many of the people began to live in towns and cities. They also began to trade goods. By the early 600s, trade became an important activity in the Arabian Peninsula. What is so important about trade and the spread of a religion? How does that work? Okay, so people interact with each other. All right. If I go up and I trade with Thomas, am I just going to say, here's your money, give me your stuff, see ya? Probably not, right? I'm probably going to have some kind of conversation. All right? I might ask him about the weather. I might ask him how his family's doing. I might ask him other things that are there. He might tell me something cool that he did this weekend. All right, we're going to have a conversation. Well, back then, your conversation would be about your religion. It would be about the things that were founded as far as innovations and inventions and things like that, some other new trade. And that's how all of that spread because of trade. Then you would create outposts. When you created an outpost, sometimes those outposts would become where you practiced your religion. Generally, people want other people like them to assimilate in the same area. So therefore, that religion grows. Trade is really big because it spreads the ideas. Then your trade routes go further and further apart, and those ideas continue to get spread further and further and further. Okay. If Islam didn't have a very good trade route, the idea of being a Muslim, the idea of the religion of Islam would not have spread. Okay. So it's a huge, huge thing. They're also powerful. They united all their tribes again in the end, and that kind of made them very powerful off that part. but that's what helped them conquer land. That was the empire that continued to go. They traded for spices and other goods, and they also brought new ideas. At the time, some Arabs believed in one God, and that one God in Arabic was known as Allah. Okay? So, again, I'm going to compare a ton of this to Christianity. So, Christianity has God, Islam has Allah. They're both what? How many gods are there? One. So, they're both monotheistic. That's there. All right, let me answer this and I'll go back to it. Yes, ma'am. I do, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Alex, if you'll go to the front and sign out. All right, so there's one God. Again, ours, as far as Christianity, called God. Theirs, based upon the Arabic term, is Allah. All right, you're going to see a ton of similarities between the idea of Christianity and the idea of Islam. All right. It says others believe that many religious pilgrims came to Mecca to worship. Mecca is a big deal because that is going to be the major city where all of this goes down. The same idea of Jerusalem. With Christianity, there's a major city that's there. There was an ancient shrine that was made there, the Kaaba, and then it says, according to Muslim belief, this man that is a prophet. What's a prophet? What's how did they become sacred on there? What was done to a prophet? Yes, ma'am. Okay, they were told something from their God, right? So they were someone that hears this message, whether it be from a vision or whether it be from a burning bush or whether it be from whatever. They hear their message. They're the delivery system of their God. All right, the prophet. Good. All right. So Muhammad was the prophet for Islam. All right. So that's a big one. It is there. What's the most common name in the world? Muhammad. Because whenever you convert to Islam, you give up your original name that was given to you by your mother and your father, and you adopt a new Islamic name. Generally, that name has Muhammad in it. All right. How many of you know the story? Who's Muhammad Ali? Anybody know who that is? Yes. Who is he? Very famous, very, very good boxer. Okay. Anybody know what his real name is? Anybody know what his real name is? It wasn't Muhammad Ali. Yes. Man, nailed it. Cassius Clay. That's what I'm talking about. So the story goes that Cassius Clay was going to be drafted into the military. But based upon religious terms, as long as Muhammad Ali, he could essentially dodge the draft. That was a huge, huge topic with draft dodging and avoiding it. He had the world title belt at the time, and all of a sudden Cassius Clay becomes Muhammad Ali, and then it takes off based upon the idea of who Muhammad Ali is. We want to do some more research on that one, or when we get to it later down the line, we'll talk about that. All right. It says Muhammad was born in the Arab society around the age of 40. All right, again, you kind of compare it to Christianity. Around the age of 33 is about when Jesus took off. All right, and that was kind of the big following of Jesus whenever he became older. All right. So about the age of 40, Muhammad, he took the religion and his life's mission. According to Muslim belief, the angel Gabriel visited Muhammad and told him to speak the word of God to his people. Muhammad believed that he was the last of the prophets. All right. Did Islam or Muslim people, do they believe in Jesus? Actually, they do. It's actually in the book that they do believe in Jesus, but they don't believe that Jesus was the guy. He was a guy. Muhammad is essentially the equivalent of Jesus. He was a prophet, but he was in a list of the prophets, but he wasn't the prophet that was the come back and save everybody prophet. Okay. So that's really interesting. Again, kind of how they all compare to the same. And we can't dive into all of them, but there's so many things that are, again, from the stories that are there, they're very, very similar. Muhammad began to teach that Allah was the one and only God, and the religion based on his teachings, again, was called Islam. Its followers were called Muslim. We covered that part there. At first, many people in Mecca opposed his views. Again, you compare it to Christianity. many people that were of Jewish religion opposed the ideas of Jesus, just like many people that lived in Mecca opposed the ideas of Muhammad. They feared Meccans would neglect their traditional Arab gods, the same way that Jews thought that you were going to be worshiping someone else rather than worshiping a god. Right? Muhammad and his followers were forced to leave Mecca the same way that Jesus was exiled out. Right? And then, as far as that goes, he gains a large group and following, the same way Jesus does. Gradually, Muhammad and his followers gained power. Finally, in 630, he came back to the Kaaba in Mecca and destroyed the idols, the same way that Jesus eventually came back, went into the temple, took away all the tax collectors and all the traders inside of the temple. Again, so many things are similar. It says that they began to worship Allah as the only God. Muhammad eventually died the exact same way. Again, kind of Jesus would die. And then there's going to be this dissension between who should rule and who should not rule. Okay. It says much of the Arabian Peninsula was already united underneath Islam by the time that Muhammad did die. All right. So 5 pillars. That's a big deal right here. All right. Number 1, this is kind of like the 10 commandments for Christianity. All right, 5 things that you live based upon. All right, faith. Off of this one, there's one God and there's only one God. Again, very similar to Christianity. Again, just based upon the difference of one's called God, one's called Allah. All right, prayer. Have to pray 5 times a day. All right, when you pray, you have to face in the direction of Mecca. So then that way you're paying homage to the sacred homeland. All right. That's a big deal, and that's the reason why you see like a lot of schools in the Northeast, in Michigan and other places like that. They will have like designated prayer rooms to where whenever these students want to go pray and have to go pray, they go there. So then that way they're not disrupting class wise and everything else. But it's a requirement of prayer. Again, very similar to Christianity as far as talking to, giving alms. All right, very similar to Christianity, taking care of the widowed, taking care of the poor. All right? There's actually a tax that's collected by Islam, and that tax is to pay for the poor, to pay for the widow, to pay for the people in need. And that's what giving alms is. Fasting. What does fasting mean? Yeah, not eating. Okay. From sun up to sundown, you are not focusing on things like food of the world. You are focusing on prayer. You're focusing on God. You're focusing on your religious tasks, not about how concerned you are with the things of the world. That was fasting. And then you had to make a pilgrimage. At some point in your life, it doesn't matter where you're born at, you are to go back to Mecca and have the pilgrimage. You have to go back to the homeland. You check off these boxes, you covered your 5 pillars. It's a continuation of things that are there. Okay. So we talked about trade routes. We talked about where the Arabian Peninsula was. All right. A mosque. What's a mosque? Okay. Kind of like a temple, kind of like a church. Okay. So a mosque is the same semblance of what we would say a church is. All right. In the terms of Christian religion that's there. All right? Wherever you go as a place of worship, all right, is the mosque. Okay. This is a big one right here, and understanding the difference of right here. All right. So spelling Quran, pronounced Quran. Okay. So the idea, I'm sorry, Quran. If you go through, you go back and forth between Quran, Quran. If you pronounce the Q, some people do. It's a lot of different pronunciations, but again, Kuh, so Quran, as far as is the official book of the idea of Islam. Okay, the same way that you have a Bible. All right. Here's what gets interesting. If you're listening on the Zoom, I got to go over the other board. All right. So this is Islam. This is Judaism. This is Christianity. All right. A lot of similarities. Again, the Torah, that's the Old Testament for Christianity. All right. That's also part of the Quran. Very similar. Same stories, same stories, same stories. All right. Jesus. Islam. Yes, Jesus was here. Jesus was alive. However, he's not the guy. Muhammad was. He's a guy. Judaism, no. Christianity, yes. Okay. The stories. There's so many stories that are the exact same. Remember when we did the telephone game with Groits? And we were talking about how if you tell an old story and the only historian that was alive was the person that memorized it and had to tell the story of how things kind of convolute, they change, they're not always the same. All right. Stories are the same. If you go with the story, let's say of this one. So there's a story in the Bible that talks about, the city's about to be destroyed. All right. And God tells the people, hey, I tell you what, if you can find this many people that are worthy, I'll save the city. And they're like, oh, that's too many, God. All right, well, what about this many? That's too many. What about this many? That's too many. All right, well, if you can find this many, then we're good. They settle on a number. The same story goes along with Islam as far as prayer. All right, this many prayers. No, it's too many. This many prayers. No, it's too many. This many prayers. No, it's too many. All right, we can settle on that. So there's so many things. The ascension to heaven, the ideas of of Abraham, the ideas of angels speaking to people, the ideas of visions. All of that stuff shows up in both books, and they're very, very similar to the way that we would compare of how a Groit story was told over and over and over. The idea that the book was written because the word of God was presented to someone, and Christian values, it's in multiple people. In Islamic value, it's in one person, and that one person writes the book that's there. Okay. It says the example of Muhammad's life was called the Sunnah, and by a set of laws called Sharia. Sharia law is a big deal because that's a big problem in today's society with extremist Islam. What's the difference between an Islam and an extremist Islam? Yeah, all on the other side of the scale of the spectrum. Like, no matter what happens, this is the only thing that can happen. Whereas compared to the blending of cultures, the blending of ideas, all right? Then there's extremists on every level, whether it be a Christian, whether it be an Islam, whether it be anybody. You can go from one end to the other as an extremist. It says Muslims believe that Allah is the same God that Jews and Christians worship. To Muslim, the Quran perfects the earlier teachings of God found in the Jewish Torah and the Christian Bible. Because their holy book was related to the Quran, Jews were called the people of the book in Muslim society. So the interesting part of that one is that they were still respected based upon, even though there were different religious between us and how we divide people on, it's still the same religion based upon them believing in the people of God, having the respect of the people of God. So that's an initial introduction of the idea of Islam. What I need you to do now is go to Canvas, and there is a discussion post that says Islam religion. Define the following 10 terms. Define the following terms. All right, and what I want you to do is go to this discussion post, whether you use MyHRW, whether you use the internet, whatever you use, give a short explanation of what that term means. The easiest way to do it for me is to copy and paste that list of 10, paste it in my post, and then type in where it is, and then you will submit it, and it will go into an assignment that will be there. So it'll post your discussion that's on there. All right, anybody have any questions? Okay, it's called go to discussions right here on Canvas. And when I click on discussions, it'll come up with the post of discussions. It loads, and it's the very top one that says Islam religion, define the following terms. So you'll click on that. It'll give you your 10 terms right here. I would copy and paste that, so then that way I don't have to retype all of these terms and know what it is. I just copy and paste this, put it in my post. Then I'd look up my definitions, type them in, and submit it. All right, you'll have from now until the tail end of class to be able to submit that. So try to get that done with the time you had to give the other class about 15 minutes, you'll be good to go. You're just going to define it, like for instance, Allah, on Islamic God, or an Arabic word for God, and you would just define it. Okay. All right, and that's it for today.